I'm going to talk to you today about travel and especially about solo travel. And if you're a female, I think you're going to really like this. I'm going to talk about Machu Picchu. If this is a place you've always wanted to go to, pay attention now. Okay, so I've recently come back from a 90-day world journey, and Machu Picchu was one of my stops. Along my journey, I was talking about peace along the way, and I connected with lots of fellow travelers and stayed in all kinds of places. I want to talk about safety, and I also want to realize that not everybody travels at the same level. So I've created a book that can help you build confidence, and it's called Five Steps to Solo Travel. So, some of the things I want to talk about today are how to avoid being cheated and robbed. So, to try to blend in as a local, one of the things I recommend you do is take off your expensive jewelry and any kind of flashy items. Don't carry costly purses and don't wear expensive shoes. Just try to blend in and don't try to stand out. And one way to avoid being cheated is to check reviews. If you're going to use Airbnb, look and see what other people wrote. If you're going to rent a car on Turo, check the reviews. And don't go out at night and alone in the dark. Not a good plan. A few things that you can do are to use registered taxi apps like Taxi Beat, Cabify, Uber, etc. And also things like your passport, you're going to need photocopies and keep those in a separate place. Okay? Think about what you can do to reduce the odds of you being in an unsafe place. So let's make sure you keep them in your favor. Be cautious and aware. In other words, don't be listening on your earbuds in a busy city. Focus on who and where you are right now and pay attention. So, how do you get to Machu Picchu? Let's focus on booking your visit. Now, just realize that they only sell a certain amount of tickets, and it's about 5,600 visitors a day who can enter. So you can purchase your tickets through lots of travel agents, and there's several different circuits that you can go on. They are all timed. So certain amounts of tickets for each circuit. And so if you wanted to go this year, you could have booked anytime after December 19th. So if you're looking for 2026 or 2027, you want to look late December and see when they're going to be available. I booked in June and I had to book at least 3 months in advance. Try not to do a last minute purchase on this. It's not really going to save you a whole lot of money. So, how do you get there? So, first you get to Lima, and then you go to Cusco. And then from Cusco, you can take the rail. Okay. So, here, different rail trains will take you down there. And if you are trying to decide where to sit, try on the left side for the way there. You can buy a round trip bus ticket as well as get on an early bus or an early ride to the site, even if your ticket isn't for the afternoon. When's the best time? Some people say the 9 to 10 a.m. slot is the best for the most light. You really don't want to go in there at 6 o'clock. I went in the afternoon, and for me, it worked out really nicely because in the morning it had been hazy. And so if I had been in the morning, I wouldn't have had as good a view. The afternoon visit on my end was good. And you can remember, you can't take a lot in there with you, and they don't have restrooms inside. You can also do a short hike that's a little bit outside the park with a little extra cost. And you're not necessarily going to want to do the 2 to 5 day hike into the park if you're my age or older. So consider that the altitude is really high and you just want to have a good time. You don't necessarily want to overdo it. So you could do an extra short hike if you want. Now, I mentioned about bringing things in with you. There's no food allowed. You can, however, have a picnic outside, and don't stamp your passport. That is not a good idea. You can have a separate sheet of paper that says you did this, but don't stamp your passport. Take the bus down You can catch a train after that back to Cusco, and you can stay in Aguas Caliente if you decide you want to stay an extra night. I had some great experiences there, and it was really fun. I got to go in a hot tub and explore there. I even was able to rent a bathing suit. So that was one of the things that I didn't have with me. So I should have packed a bathing suit for Machu Picchu, but I was able to rent one. Layered clothing is definitely important because the temperature is going to change so much. You definitely want to have a rain shell in case and refillable water bottles, insect repellent, sunblock, and if you feel that you would like them, walking poles could be very helpful for you. I didn't have that, but you also needed a couple of dollars for toilets outside the park before you go in. So a few things about the altitude. I mentioned earlier, it's careful, okay? So it is actually a little bit lower than Cusco, but it's high. So a lot of walking, lots of stairs, and lots of physical exertion. So be sure you hydrate well and avoid alcohol. And you could take some altitude medication. I took some that was over the counter, and I put it behind each ear, and I also put it on my belly button. That's what the instructions were. Now, again, it was over the counter. I don't know how strong it was, and I avoided altitude sickness. So that's all I can say is it didn't happen to me. Some tips for a smoother trip: be able to know where you're going to be in advance. Um, Flights, trains, tickets, buses, if you can book them ahead of time, you're going to be much happier. And yes, bring some cash because that will help you out. There are ATMs in Cusco. If you're going to take some solo trips, be sure you use registered taxis and avoid isolated areas. And I mentioned photocopies, but all kinds of important documents would be helpful to have in separate bags. Now, one of the challenges I had was trying to pay for my tour with Western Union. It was not a good experience. I went online and tried to do it, then I went in person to several places to do it. I never was able to get it done. But when I got to Cusco, I was able to pay with a credit card. But even the person that accepted the credit card had to go and get the payment system from another vendor. So they didn't have a credit card system either. So it was a bit of a challenge for that purchase. But let me just share a few things about my experience. I got up at 3 a.m. and I got picked up at 4. And the funny thing was, I was seeing people coming in when I was leaving. So there was a lot of fun activity going on that I missed because I went to bed early. But then you take a bus and a train. I had the hot springs that I really enjoyed. And then I also had a private guided tour with Eduardo. And I ended up walking about 6.5 miles and about 48 flights of stairs. And this was a really cute llama that I saw on the day of. So really, really good experience. And I even saw a baby llama that was just a few days old. This one's a little older, but I saw one that was just 3 or 4 days old. So um, now, there were some things that reminded me a little bit of national parks in the United States, like Yosemite, although there were no trees, but it did have that classical, like epic feel to it that Yosemite did. And of course, I got pictures. And what does Machu Picchu means? And it just means old mountain, if you're really wanting to know what that means. A little bit of history. Incas, they flourished in the 15th and 16th century across the Andes, and they didn't have that many tools. They didn't have a lot of the same things that you would think would be, acceptable today, but this was hidden for centuries. So it was only discovered a few hundred years ago. So my tour, it covered all kinds of details about the worship, farming, burial practices, and there were also many places where there were skeletons that were found in the ruins. So a few memorable moments that I had. Eduardo, I had a chance to have tea with him before we even set out, which was great. Then I had a chance to go into the hot springs and soak. And this picture here is an example of that hot spring. So they had different levels of hot springs and of course a shower beforehand. My private tour really felt good. And even though there was some rain, most of the time it was sunny and bright. Although the clouds kind of gave it a mystical feeling, which I really liked. The final takeaway that I want to share is that Western Union was not something I would recommend, and that you should plan and book it months ahead. If you get started early, you're going to have a great day. And my experience included all the different weather elements you could think of, plus lots of cute animals. The Old Mountain trip will be unforgettable, and I hope that you get a chance to enjoy that. So I hope you enjoyed this journey. And also take a look at my 5 steps to solo travel, which is on Amazon. Hopefully, your trip will be with confidence. And AI did help me with some of the suggestions here. There is a QR code if you want to save this. So, thank you for paying attention.